can have the education even if people aren't actually engaging in the saving schemes at that point. And the younger saver is a very interesting point. You know, we know where the government's going with things like lifetime ISAs, and more we see a trend where people have different stages to their savings now, where saving for pension, which was the thing and always has been, it's not about that so much now. If you talk to, and we talk to our students, they'll be talking about saving for 10 years' time to try to get themselves out of rented property onto the property ladder. So they need different savings vehicles, which you know, providing they've got the education of understanding that they need to save for later life, it's not always about them engaging with doing that immediately. It's about being a savvy saver for what their lifestyle needs are. And I think that's the first point, that as long as the education's there, they can make sensible, rational decisions about their saving habits.
I think there's an interesting point about this, trying to get people to understand money that they may have in retirement, getting them to think about not the source that it comes from. So does it come from a pension? Does it come from a buy-to-let? Does it come from an ISA or whatever? But actually, in the first instance, get them to think about it as an income, and actually what sort of income are they happy to live off of. So okay, you have the state pension, although clearly the age at which people will receive state pension will gradually move out, and don't overcomplicate it. In the same way, you know, when someone's advertised, you know, when someone applies for a job, why are they applying for that job? Because primarily they want an income, they need an income, and they see on the job ad that it's, you know, 26 grand a year or whatever it may be. It doesn't get dressed up with, you know, there's no qualifiers around that 26k, is there, when it's advertised? There's no like, well, I just want to explain what the income tax situation is on that, and what your personal allowance is, and what is NI on that. It's just, you know, it's just an income. And yet the pension industry gets into this thing about, right, I'm going to put all these caveats around it before I actually get to the bit that actually most people understand, which is, what income do I want? Am I happy living off of £10,000 a year, or do I want to live off £20,000 a year or £30,000 a year? And if I understand that, then we can then start talk about, well, actually there are various ways that you may be able to achieve that goal. Pension is, of course, one of them. We can go into detail of that, but there are others as well that you may consider and may suit your lifestyle or life stage better, depending on what age you are. So I think there is that, you know, moving it away from pension and getting it into something that everyone understands, which is income.
Yeah, and I think the pensions industry have got a big part to play in this, Jonathan, because, you know, if you think of somebody who's got 8 employers receiving a pension statement from them, different employers every year, people don't take the time to look at it. They just get filed, but that is partly because of how they package up the pension statements, and it's the language and the terminology that they're using. They don't make it real for people, and it doesn't encourage them to look at their bigger picture, you know, of, well, what does that picture paint all together? Is that sustainable? And I think the pensions industry have got a big role to play in trying to make this understandable.
I think there's lots of different savings options available that we all know about, and there's the help with buying the house and everything else, the help to buy ISAs. But you asked a question, Helen, about, I think it was about whether we should focus them on saving or putting money into the pension, more or less, to, you know, phrase it. And I think that's their choice, but it's all about the financial education. And I think if they understand, then they can make those choices, because there are different options available to them. But I just think that people don't understand at all what options are available and what it means for them in later life.
I think there's an interesting dynamic between what employers may choose to do to help their employees. So again, you know, bringing in outside expertise that you know, can talk around a range of things. So whether it's pension, whether it's an ISA, whether it's debt, you know, whatever the financial issue may be, they're qualified and an expert in being able to do that. So I think that's the first step, because, you know, I have heard some pretty worrying stuff where, you know, employers themselves try to do this stuff and, you know, come up with some interesting results. So I think the first thing is that if you're going to do education, you do need to get the experts in. You know, I think trying to do it yourself becomes almost by definition quite restricted. But then I think the second layer to that is, and sometimes that second layer unfortunately comes first, is people go down the route of saying, well, what products might my employees like, and let me go out and source that product. And the problem with that is it's fine if the employer is negotiating a great deal on behalf of the employee, which is far better than that employee could ever get by going out on the high street or going onto the internet or whatever. But of course, in the past, we've seen examples of where that hasn't been the case, that they put the product before actually understanding what the individual needs and then saying, and what is the best way of dealing with this? Is it better then to use an advisory firm that will go off and, because whoever's the best deal today may not be the best deal tomorrow, and so people in the round will always get the best deal? Or is it better that as an employer we say, no, we're going to negotiate a deal because we absolutely believe we can get a better deal. Now, to give it you around the other way, and when it comes to retirement, one that some companies have started to do, but I'm just amazed not more companies are doing this, is that when it comes to retirement, pension funds, employers have absolutely enormous buying power to buy retirement services at a much cheaper rate. So in the same way they do an accumulation, where they go out and do the deals with the pension administrators and the fund providers and all the rest of it, they have an absolutely fantastic opportunity to go and negotiate a better rate than those members or employees could get in the high street in terms of retirement services and options. And yet very few have done it.
Good employers, I expect to see a portfolio of products, but I totally accept the point of view that this is where the expertise needs to come in. Because when we've got things like lifetime ISAs on the horizon, which are very generous, schemes that the government's put in place to help people save under a certain age, you kind of go, well, where's the employer's role in supporting those initiatives? But where are the providers coming forward saying, look, we can work with you in the workplace to take contributions through your payroll, and then we can get it topped up by the government. We will help you make this happen. And that is how then the employer comes out of this with moral duties intact. We are helping them, but equally we're helping them access something that they may not otherwise find out about or know about. And I think my expectation is that in the financial education and wellbeing, I'd expect to see a portfolio of products, which is a pick and mix, which people dip in and out of, and I'd expect to see my pensions and my AVCs. But equally, I expect to see things like ISAs in the workplace. Sometimes I even expect to see relationships with things like a community bank, responsible saving habits for responsible borrowing habits.